excited today to introduce Brent Upton, president and founder of Upton Technologies. This is the No Grow Scale podcast where we talk about all things growth for MSPs and IT companies. And Brent is a longtime friend of mine. And I would just want to talk about Upton Technologies, your journey, where you are now, where you've come from. You built a very successful business, and I'm excited to talk about it today. So thank you for joining me.
Sure, no problem.
So let's talk about the early days before, I guess, before Upton Technologies was a thing. Your early work history, why you started the company in the first place, when you started. Just kind of give me a little background on you as a person and as a founder before we get into the details of your business.
Yeah, and just to kind of go way back, I'm kind of like young Gen X, old kind of millennial. So
Yeah.
growing up in the '80s, I grew up with what was introduced as a home computer. And
Yep.
it was just one of those technologies that always fascinated me from the beginning. And I knew, from a very early age, that's exactly what I want to work with.
Yeah.
And I was kind of the nerd in high school, part of the computer club. We were the ones showing the computer teacher how to do things. And eventually, right after I got out of high school, first year of college, I started doing where pretty much any IT professional starts, you're going to start at the bottom.
Right.
So I started at the help desk,
Right.
answer the
Right.
phone, how can I help you? Walking people through their issues. And that's one thing that was kind of important is you learn the customer service aspect
Yeah.
of the business
Yeah.
because you have people that have tried everything before they call. They're frustrated, they're mad, and
Yeah.
then you have to realize don't take it personally. They're not mad at you, they're mad at the situation.
Right. That's good.
And I noticed a lot of IT people, who didn't start out with the customer service end, they might have worked, maybe in network operations or they work tier two where they don't really work with customers directly. And when they come into a role where they have to work with customers, they kind of get rubbed the wrong way. So I think with me, that was a good first step, in ultimately running my business, which of course is
Yeah.
service oriented for the customer because
Yeah.
you always have to put them first. You have to understand that, that when they call, they want someone to answer the phone and they want the issue
Right.
resolved, you know, as soon as possible because that's a
Right.
major pain point for a business. We talk cybersecurity all the time, and that may be a pain point every now and then. It's usually after they've been hacked, but 99% of the time is I'm mad, I can't print, my
Right.
email's not working. So it's just one of those things where you have to make sure that that phone is answered all the
Right.
time.
And
And
and too that there's somebody that has a little empathy on the other side because like you just said, like that person has probably already done all that they can do themselves to fix the issue because a lot of times your I wouldn't say last resort, but one of your last resorts is actually having to pick up the phone and go through the trouble of calling somebody. So being able to find somebody that's sensitive to just like that's empathetic and that can that can be concerned,
yeah, oh yeah.
sound concerned even if even if they're not
Right.
just
You have to de-escalate their frustration.
right,
By the
right.
end of the call,
That's
it's
a
like, okay,
skill.
everything's
That
fine. Yeah.
yeah, that takes a skill for sure. That's
Yeah.
different
Oh
than
yeah.
fixing it. That's different than fixing a technical problem, right? That's
Yes. Yes,
part of
definitely.
so were you working while you were in school?
Yeah.
You said you were doing it like you're so you've been doing this literally since you were
I was probably 18, 19 when I
wow.
first started. And I'd go, I was at Dorms, Mississippi College during the day, and then at about 5 o'clock, I'd pack up and go downtown and put the
Wow.
headset on and work till about 10:30 or 11.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where at least I kind of had a little bit of money that I was making on my own and kind of
Mhm,
acquiring some skills, but
mhm.
it's one of those things where it is just exhausting when you are doing school and then you're doing work at the same time. And
Yeah,
I appreciate, the people that just have that drive to be able
yeah,
to do both, where they went through with no student loans, they paid their way working a
yeah,
full-time job. And so I always appreciate when I hear
yeah,
stories like
that
that.
that tells you a lot about someone's work ethic too. So and I think
Exactly.
honestly to build a successful IT business, um, at a minimum, leadership and founder, I mean, you don't yeah, I really don't know that anybody gets to the point that you've gotten to without that type of work ethic because, issues that are IT related don't just happen between 8 and 5.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's text messages, you may get one at Saturday at 8 o'clock,
Right.
Sunday, I do the IT for my church,
Yep.
and I'll be in the pew, and I'll look at my watch and saying, "This camera's not working," I don't
Right.
see it on the network, and I'm like,
Right.
"Okay," looking around, see if I kinda sneak off and
Right.
take care of it, and it's one of those things where, as a business owner, you always know you have to find the work-life balance, and I'm almost some days I think that's gotta be a myth because it's almost like for me at least, I found in the beginning, if I ever wanted to generate work, either try to go on vacation or just be sick.
Right.
That's when everyone would start calling,
At
it
least
never
he's
failed.
honest, folks. At least he's honest. I think that's good though. That's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Well, let's talk about okay, so we know that work ethic kind of got you to the place where you decided to start the business. Was there ever any question? I mean, did you know, okay, when I graduate, this is what I'm going to do, or did you go work for someone else? What did you do right out of college?
So what I did was I worked for another and I guess, this was early 2000s. I don't know if they were called managed service providers then. I
Right,
think it was like a IT consulting company or something.
right, right, right,
So I went there and I worked there for a couple of years. And it's one of those things, two partners and they decided to go our own separate ways. And that's kind of when I had the opportunity saying, well, I've always worked with these clients. They know me.
right.
So I'll just go out on my own
Yeah,
and we'll see how it works. And it's kind of scary when you make that leap because you don't get that nice, neat little paycheck
right,
every 2 weeks. It's $100 here, $200
right,
here. We all group it together and hope you can make,
right, right,
meet your bills. And that's, initially plenty of work, and then things kinda slow down because you're working around the clock,
right,
but you're not going out there and finding new work.
right. And it was just
Mhm.
you at the time? Were you
Just
solo?
me,
Yeah, yeah,
just me.
yeah.
So, working nights, weekends, and it's one of those things where some IT people try to wear a badge of how long they can work,
Right,
and I found out that's just completely dumb. It's like at
right.
some point you just got to stop.
You can always find work to do. There's always something that can be done,
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, 48 hours straight,
Yeah,
no sleep. It's like, but this has to be done because the whole time I'm thinking, if I'm not taking care of these clients, they'll just go somewhere else.
mhm,
I have to make sure because this is my lifeline
right,
right here. And just to think in the beginning, it's like, I was thinking it was in the hospital. My wife was giving birth to our first child. I'm on the phone with a client and the nurse trying to snatch the phone out of my hand saying, "Get over here." And I'm thinking
This
they
is
may
the
may not
biggest
call me
moment
back.
of your life.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking I've got to answer these calls because I'm always
Yeah,
afraid if I don't answer it, they will not call
they'll
back.
go they'll go somewhere else. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a tough place to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
So this is a big fast forward. So how long have you been in business from when you started? Full
So
length,
this November, it'll be 19 years.
19 years. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you have, I'm sure between year 1 and year 19, a lot of stories to tell, but where are you now in terms of service offering, who you serve? I know I'm sure it's a little different than year 1. So what has kind of been the transition between what you were doing year 1 and today, 19 years later?
So as far as what we did, or I did, year one, you almost in the beginning, you're just trying to survive,
Right.
take
That's
it in, you got it.
any entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And eventually you're like, okay, I need to actually take this, and start building it into a real sustainable business, that hopefully that I can either pass on to my children one day or something that, that can grow on its own without me being involved.
Right. Right.
Um, and, lot of hurdles along the way. The hardest thing is when you first get started is making that leap to hiring your first person.
Yeah.
And I look back on it now, and of course, after listening to the stories of other entrepreneurs, people start their business. It's like that's the hardest part because
Yep.
you're getting overwhelmed. You can't keep up with the pace, so you just hire the first warm body, that you can find,
Right.
and
Right.
that
You
has
don't have time to
always
train them.
Yeah, no time, like, "I hope you know what you're doing, I'm gonna let you loose," but
Right.
for the most part, that has always been a disaster
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I have clients who, you have that kind of personal relationship with, and I'm glad when they come to me and say, "Listen, this guy is not working."
Not it. Yeah.
Yeah, other than saying, "Oh, we'll just fire you and go with
Right.
someone else," and you're
Right.
like, "Okay, you yes,
But I've always said, and this is my take on it, but technical issues are going to happen. That is
right,
life, that is the nature of business. That is what it in my opinion, it's the relationship that you can build and the responsiveness to their problems that is going to make a great MSP or a great IT company
right,
because
right."
you can't do everything perfectly all the time the same. In my business, we are all human and not everything is perfect all the time, but if we miss a deadline or if we make a mistake, my hope is the relationships that we built and the trust that we built will cover for those human errors, which I think in your line of business and the business that you built, it shows that you have.
Yeah, and then they completely understand. They're a business that and they have multiple employees. They kind of know how all this works. So that's
Right,
why, at least for me, they're more forgiving
right,
that aspect because they know
right.
how difficult it is to hire and retain good people.
Yeah. So, in finding those like key critical employees, I think is like you said, your first hire is always to me. It was the most scary to me. I'm thankful that she's still with me, but I think that it does get a lot easier along the way, and then knowing what you're looking for becomes a little bit more second nature, especially if you've been doing it for 19 years, knowing what you're not looking for and what you what you are
Yeah,
looking.
exactly, exactly. It's very difficult. I'm in a lot of these MSP networking groups. I go to a lot of the events, and I'm thinking it's just me. And you
Yeah,
find out it's everybody.
yeah. Everybody's in the same boat. Yeah.
Right.
So what services are you offering now? What's your solution? Is it vary based on client size or client type or kind of what are your key components of your service offering?
So service offering is like most MSPs, a per seat pricing.
Yep.
And on top of that, we offer like cybersecurity services, which right now is very important. But I think I mentioned earlier, it's like it's not really a pain point for most of our clients. It's
Right.
only after they see the financial impact of the cybersecurity breach, and then it's like, okay, fine, what do we need to do so this never happens
Right.
again?
Right. And it's really hard to get people to care when it's not happening to them.
Right, right. And like we
Yep.
talk with other MSPs, it's the same thing. It's like, how are you selling it to your clients? It's like, well, they get breached and it sells itself. So,
Right.
you can't
Right.
get them. It's like, let's go ahead and sell you the seatbelt, so you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But unfortunately, for the most part, they're just like, we're probably not going to get hacked. It's like, if you do get hacked, you don't do anything about it. It's not like, these are honorable thieves. They'll come back and just do it again.
Right. 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 Especially if they know you're susceptible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
So is there a particular type of client or customer that you feel like is ideal or work best with or size or anything in particular that you're like, this is our sweet spot?
Yeah, I think typically it's law firms
Yeah,
because going all the way back, we know the type of software they use. We
right.
know what type of procedures they have.
Yeah.
We know how the attorneys work. They may be up
They
there
have, they have a particular
frequently.
set of needs too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We know kind of how they operate, and that's
Right.
typically what we're looking for. For most size, anything over you know 20
Yeah.
employees is what
Yeah.
we're looking for.
Yeah. That's your sweet spot. So what about okay, let's talk about building your business because I think a lot of other MSPs can learn from you and how you built your business. Like you said, you start out the same way I did, same way pretty much any entrepreneur would. You start out, you'll take what anybody that'll pay you a dollar, you'll do something for them.
Right, right,
That's how it starts. Then you start to identify good partners, good relationships, good referrals, word of mouth. I think that particularly in a really close knit community like we're in now, which I know you are certainly outside of just the community of in Mississippi that we're in, but how have you really built that referral based business because you have gone almost 19 years with just a lot of handshakes and making those relationships and that's sustained the business up till this point. So how have you done that? Has there been a method to your madness? And not madness.
Well, like I said, it's just being available and getting their issue resolved as quickly as possible
Yeah,
because, like, that machine doesn't work, the paralegals can't print, that's a pain point, we're stuck.
yeah,
When they start hearing it's like, well, Brent's gonna answer the phone, Brent's
yeah,
gonna answer the text messages, he's gonna hop on, and resolve it quickly. That's what they want. And
yeah,
when, attorneys network too, it's
yeah,
like I'm having all these issues. My guys that the IT guy will come out once a week,
yeah,
when he can. He'll look at it, he'll poke at it. Nothing's getting fixed. Like, well, I've got this guy and he can knock it out in 30 minutes.
right,
And usually
right.
just nothing over the phone.
That goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That they appreciate the promptness.
yeah. And they just want it to work. They don't care the how, they don't care about the why, they don't care about. They just want it to work.
Yeah, it's like I'm this is getting in my way. I just want to be able to work.
Yeah, yeah. And I think when you specialize in, and while you have, customers in different industries, when you really focus on problem solving for that particular like legal industry, that, I've even had the same experience, that word of mouth really does take off. So you don't have to have, I don't know if you've had any like formal referral partners or built any sort of programs that way, but really if you specialize in a niche or industry, that kind of spreads like wildfire if you do a good job, like you said. Have you had any like specific referral partners or not necessarily?
What we do, so Blake Howe, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
we've
yeah.
worked with
You
them
know,
for
website
yeah,
developer, yeah,
yeah, long, long time. And if we need someone who does websites or SEO, send
right.
him.
It goes
Um,
hand in hand.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then he'll send stuff to us. So
yeah,
we've got those people. It's like if they do just strictly phones,
yep,
like I don't do the IT side.
right,
Even though kind of now, with phones, it's becoming like another device on the network.
right, right,
But these guys were like, I'd rather you just handle it.
right,
And, we work with those people all the time,
right.
great relationships, good referrals.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
anybody who has the same customer, they're just serving a different part of the solution is a
Right,
good for you. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So what about sales? Have you been the primary salesperson or have you branched out and had somebody else outside of referrals doing sales, or has that been strictly your focus?
Well, I know, in the beginning, we maybe third or fourth year into the business, I had no idea what to look for in a salesperson.
Yeah.
I just had a couple of people say, "Hey, this person works in sales." It's like, okay, well, we'll hire them. We'll do a base salary kind of thing. This is just, I didn't have an idea what I was doing, not a clue.
Even
So we hired them and then said, okay, well, this is what we're targeting. That we've always done legal. Let's just do legal. She said, okay, well, I got good relationship with firms, and we, she went out there and waited and nothing.
yeah.
It's like, any
Yeah.
leads, anything? And she's like, no, because we didn't at the time we didn't know anything about metrics or really the
Right.
expectations for sales. It's
Right.
like
Right.
now as we talk to people and we work with people like you, it's like it's a process that you have to get some momentum going before you even see any results. But in
Right.
the beginning, there's no one to really tell you that.
Right, and
So I
you do have to kinda set, especially in sales from what I've learned, you've gotta set particular KPIs, like, you have to see the activity at a
right,
minimum in the first couple months. If we're not, having conversations, then we're not gonna get booked meetings, so
right,
that's a challenge, I think, and everyone that you had hired up to that point was a technical, not a salesperson, so it's a totally different type of hire.
yep. Yeah, occasionally, it would be we'd hire someone and they would know like a company that say, okay, well, we could bring them in.
Yeah,
So we did that, and that, we that kind of worked too for a little bit. Some hires you wouldn't get anything. It's like if you know anyone, any law firms, like we'll
yeah,
typically get that. I mean, they would kind of be, listen, I just want a job. I want to come in at 8. I want to leave at 5. It's like
right,
we're brand new company. We can't
right,
necessarily do that. But,
right,
that's their expectations for it.
right,
And that's what I learned too is as we get back into creating like a framework or a structure for hiring, we
Mhm.
need to make sure that we set those expectations,
Right.
because that's the problem before. It's like, we're really busy, just hire anyone. Anyone that's looking for an IT job, just let's
Right.
just hire them.
Right.
But now we have to have, building out a whole process in place because, I work for someone at one time and you work for someone at one time. You kind of know what you expect as an employee. You just don't want this one, position. It's like, how do I move up within the company? What's
Right.
something that I'm going to enjoy and I'm going to find fulfilling about this particular,
Right.
position?
Right. So it kind of goes both ways. You want to find team members that align with your vision and purpose, and also want to or are motivated to move up. I feel like if you're having somebody that's like telling you on the front end, "I just want an 8 to 5," like that's not that's not the employee you want. But also, I mean, one thing I've learned is, they say, hire slow, fire fast.
Yep.
One of the things that I've learned is, for any employee, there are specific things that I feel like I that can kind of are good indicators for me in the first 90 days. Like if I see any of this type of behavior in the first 90 days, that tells me that they're probably not, long term, from
Right.
whether showing up for meetings, showing up on time. There are like some metrics that across the board. Now, of course, for sales, you have specific metrics. For your, engineers, you have specific metrics, but for employees as a whole, there are things that you can look at and know pretty quickly whether or not that they're a hit or a miss. And I know there are a lot of employee, personality tests and things like that we use internally as well. But I will say there's some things that you just don't know until you get on the other side of it. And that makes it tough. But we live, we learn, right?
Right. And that's very important, and like you said, when it's supposed to be slow to hire, quick to fire, mine was always the opposite
Yeah.
because, I did not want to put
You
have to.
needed them yesterday. Yeah.
Right, it's like, I didn't wanna have it's like they're not working out, and now I've gotta go through the whole process of sitting you down and tell you why it didn't work out. It's like, I'd
Right.
rather go out of my way to avoid that, but that was something I needed to improve on because every time my clients would do it for me,
Mm,
which it has happened more than once, unfortunately, but that's something that I just need to learn to do, and like you said, you gotta have metrics attached to everything where you kinda
yeah.
know how well they're progressing,
Yeah.
how well the clients are responding to them, and that's something when you're so tied up, you know, you don't make the time to do it. But
Yeah.
as a business owner, you have to make the time to sit down and make sure, that everyone is doing their job the
Right.
way they're supposed to.
Right. Right. So, how has your role changed as you've moved into starting the business, doing everything, into what you're doing today? Are you partly in the work, partly in sales? What does your day to day look like now at 19 years in? And is it what you'd want it to be, or would you prefer to be doing something different?
Well, in the beginning, you wear all the hats, and
Yeah.
hopefully as you progress, you can start handing a lot of those hats off.
Yeah.
In mine, it's still text message, "Hey, can you hop on this real quick?" I have a plan, of what I'm going to do that day, and that is all shot by about
Yeah.
8:30 in the morning. So, the only day that I can actually get stuff done is on a Saturday. Like, if I just get up, knock
Yeah.
out about 3 or 4 hours worth of stuff, and then
Yeah.
kinda progress, or I may just have to come home that night and work on it then.
Right.
But yeah, that I think, at least what I'm wanting to do is, now that we're working with you on the marketing side, is kinda
Yeah.
get more involved in that now.
Yeah.
Uh, and on the back end, Ryan, who is my business partner, which you've met,
Hmm.
trying to work out a framework for bringing people on.
Yeah.
Because we had another client we went to not too long ago where they have it on posters, like on their wall. It's like, this is how you start, this is where you start, this is what your pay is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of the tree of how you progress through
Yeah.
it. Like, well, that's awesome because
Yeah.
it's very transparent.
Yeah.
There are
Yep.
no questions of we're gonna hide how much you make. It's like, if you
Right.
this, then you have to get these industry certifications.
Right. Right. And it gives them something to shoot for.
Right. Right.
That's good. That's good. So you did mention we're obviously working together from a marketing standpoint. So as far as kind of shifting from, okay, 19 years in, you've made a conscious effort to start to kind of shift the direction of your business into true like lead generation, finding, I say ICPs, so ideal customer profiles, like figuring out who it is that you're going after and truly going after them and approaching them in more of a outbound and inbound way where those leads are coming to you. So what I'm learning is, I work with agency owners and other folks, and really 70% of business to business, people looking for business to business solutions are making those decisions pretty much online before they even contact anyone. So even in the business world, you would expect that. And I think it's a lot higher for retail because those are quicker, less of a less of a buying cycle, shorter buying cycle, whatever. But for your product and service, even today, people are really looking online before they're making any of these decisions. So what we're learning is that content marketing is really leading business decisions online. And a lot of folks are like, content marketing, what does that even mean? But truly on Google, content is king. So that means what your website says really is important. What your
Right.
blog is saying, those case studies are really important. So I'm, I'm glad that you're kind of on this journey with us, but I think it's just important to point out to all of those people who are listening, maybe that have built their business on handshakes, that, and we've talked about this before, but building that relationship, but doing building that trust and all that you're talking about. We built trust. We did things for them. We answered the phone. It's a very different ball game when you're having to build that same trust online. So it's a process. But blog posts, white paper, search engine, making sure that you're top of search, social media, digital ads, email marketing. That's a whole kind of journey that you're embarking on in the next few months as you kind of get into that. So I'm interested to see how that referral relationship, how it kind of aligns with, okay, once you find somebody that found you digitally, what does that relationship look like ongoing? And I think that's important. I'd be interested to hear, like, what would you say is your typical customer lifetime? Like someone stays with you for how long?
So, and this kind of all prompted doing the marketing thing, but
Yeah,
it was since the beginning. I mean, I've had clients for, since that came with me
19
from the
years,
previous number, 20 years,
20
like
years. Yeah.
over 20 years.
Yeah. So I think that when you think about that and you look at marketing investment, and I think every MSP is different, every IT company is different. There is a season and a length of time where marketing is not necessarily appropriate because you're building the insides of the business. And then when you get ready, when that structure is built, you get ready to really go outbound. I think that it's important to think about the investment is scary. I mean, investment in marketing is scary, but when you sit here and tell me I've had a customer for 20 years, that return on investment to acquire somebody, if they're going to stay, because typically, like if you have that, if you do treat the customer the way that you treat your customers, then that lifetime value is expected to be quite long. I mean, we're not talking 6 months to a year. We're talking 3 to 5 to 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So it's just really cool to kind of think about like what type of lifetime value you can be seeing from an investment in marketing and in your customers too. And I think that low hanging fruit that we don't talk about a lot of times, but this is kind of phase two, in my opinion, of getting that marketing engine running. But okay, who are our current customers and what else could we offer them?
Hmm.
Because there are probably a lot of your customers you've had for a while that maybe don't know about some of your offerings or don't,
Yeah.
you haven't fully exposed them to. So, okay, so let's talk about your future. What's next for you guys? So what if you're going to talk to another owner or president of a company similar to yours, how would you advise them on knowing when it's time to kind of shift from base, and I mentioned it's different for everybody, but like going from building your business more grassroots to like really starting to make that investment in kind of lead generating type strategies.
Yeah. So, the reason we decided that we're going to get into marketing, it's great to have these clients for so many years. The uncertainty comes from when they're getting to that point where they're going to retire,
Yeah,
they're going to sell the business, or they're going to shut it down. And if all you've done is work off referrals, which they're solid referrals,
right,
but it's slow.
right.
And it's kind of like that, Dave Ramsey, I read all his books. I read
Yeah.
all the books he recommends, and the one that's this all kind of reminds me of it almost reads like it reads like a children's book. It's called Moved My Cheese.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And the whole point of that book is you have to adapt to change.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
mice kept going back to the cheese thinking it would always be there when the other was like, it's not always going to be there. We need to go
Right.
somewhere else.
Right.
And this is the same thing. It's like I can't rely on these companies to always be there
Right.
because we have one just recently that they sold to a larger company. And when you sell to a larger company, they already have IT.
Right. You don't necessarily acquire that contract. Get
No, no, you
rid of
don't.
that
You don't.
internally or well, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So thankfully, they kept us on as kind of just boots on the ground when they needed someone
Right.
to go out there. But that seems, that it's going to happen a lot over the next couple of years.
Right.
So that's why we're
One or
looking.
yeah, and like one or two of those, I mean, that can be a big hit to a small bit, like I mean, you're certainly have grown your business, but still like one or two or three of those legacy customers closing their business or being acquired, that's serious impact. I mean, that
Yeah.
can definitely impact.
Yeah, and that's why we make sure we have that funnel going, so we
Right.
have referrals that are constantly coming in.
Predictable. Yep.
Right, and that also kind of allows us to start focusing on, uh, putting in place a structure for hiring people too,
Right.
where we
Right.
can have them in the pipeline and get them trained properly.
In the same way. Right.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what we didn't really address this, but that's one of the not just the hiring, but the timing of the hire becoming predictable when you do have a lead generation engine that is working.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a big, I mean, that's an impact to the internal part of the business, not necessarily, revenue generating, but the peace of mind of knowing, okay, here's on average how many leads I'm getting. Here's what's turning into new business. Here's how I know when I'm going to hire somebody. And I think that's even though I'm a marketing agency, we didn't really start doing our own marketing until fall of last year. So, and that's been a really shift in this business too, is like the first couple of months, years of the business, knowing when to hire was my biggest struggle because you didn't want to hire too early, you didn't want to be too late and then suffer with, potentially unhappy customers. So
Right, right.
it's a certainly a learning curve.
Yeah, oh, definitely. It's the hardest part of running a business.
Yeah. So, what about you just mentioned the Who Moved My Cheese, which I love that book. What do you have any other favorite resources for other business owners in the similar industry or any, books that you or tools that you would share that if someone's in your similar situation that you would recommend as you've grown your business?
So, still going back to Dave Ramsey, read any of those entrepreneurship books are awesome.
Yeah.
Donald Miller, I think that Story Brand,
Yeah.
he's got
Several.
great
Yeah.
books, read those. Any of the books I like biographies and autobiographies, and I think the one I'm reading now is the one that Arnold Schwarzenegger just released.
Oh,
Basically 6 tools, how to be useful, 6 tools for life. It's
yeah.
like that's
Okay.
kind of the whole point. You have to
Yeah.
be useful to someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you always have to, a lot of these entrepreneurs, they're constantly learning new skills to make themselves more useful.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where a lot of people, they come home from their job and they're completely exhausted,
Mm,
but you think of all the time you waste, doom scrolling on Facebook,
right.
watching YouTube videos when you could be learning a new skill.
Right.
And, what kind of separates those people from those that are successful are the
Right.
ones that keep applying it.
And
Like,
keep a growth mindset. Like
yeah,
there's never time to stop growing. I feel like that's one of our core values here at our company is growth. And that's a big, to me, a must for my team members is that if you come in and you feel like you've learned all you need to know and you only do this, and I'm not willing to, like I'm willing,
Yeah,
only willing to work from 8 to 5. Not that I require them to work outside of work hours, but there is something to be said for somebody with a growth mindset. And I think entrepreneurs, it might come naturally for some, it may not, but it is huge to know that there's always more to learn.
there is, and just applying it, and it's one of those things where you come home and completely exhausted, but you do it anyway.
Right.
It's like one
Right.
of those things. I don't know. It may be a Zig Ziglar saying about eating your frogs.
Yeah.
Like when you come in the morning, do the thing that you absolutely do not want to do first, and
Yeah.
just get it out of the
Get
way.
out of the way. Yeah. I love it. Okay, so I know you've got a new website coming, but how would someone look you up if they were interested in doing business with you or talking to you? What's your website? And how could they get in touch with Upton Technologies?
Yeah, so because you always Google Upton Technologies, pull up the phone number, you can go to
Yeah,
uptontech.com, fill out the form, and we'll be more than happy to get in touch with you and help you out with your IT needs.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was great to learn from somebody kind of in the trenches who's been doing this a long time. I appreciate you spending some time with me today, and thank you for
Sure.
all that you shared.